The rain pelted the windows of the tiny San Francisco apartment, each drop a hammer against Julian's heart. He sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the man he loved, the man who'd never said, "I love you" back. Marcus, all sharp jawlines and unyielding confidence, stood across the room, oblivious to the storm brewing inside Julian's chest. Julian, 25, was a graphic designer with a quiet intensity, his warm brown skin and expressive hazel eyes often betraying emotions he tried to hide. Born in Oakland to a single mother, he'd learned early to guard his heart, but Marcus had slipped past every defense. Marcus, 27, was a personal trainer, a black man whose towering frame and commanding presence earned him the nickname Alpha among his clients. His deep voice and easy charm drew people in, but his heart? That was a fortress Julian had never breached. They'd been together for 2 years, a relationship born in the sweaty chaos of a gym where Julian, out of his depth, had dropped a dumbbell and Marcus had caught it before it crushed his foot. That moment, Marcus's hands steadying Julian's, their eyes locking, had felt like fate. But now, as Julian sat in their shared apartment, the weight of unspoken words crushed him more than any dumbbell ever could. "Marcus," Julian said, his voice barely above the rain. "We need to talk." Marcus turned, his dark eyes narrowing. "What's this about, Jules? You've been off all week." Julian's throat tightened. He'd rehearsed this 100 times, but the words felt like glass in his mouth. "I can't keep pretending everything's fine. You don't love me, do you?" The silence that followed was louder than the storm outside. Marcus's face hardened, his arms crossing over his broad chest. "That's not fair," he said, his voice low, controlled. "You know I care about you." "Care?" Julian's laugh was bitter, his hazel eyes glistening. "I've poured my soul into this, Marcus. I've given you everything, my time, my heart, my future. And you can't even say the word." Marcus took a step forward, then stopped, as if an invisible wall held him back. "It's not that simple, Julian. You know my family, my world, they don't get this. Us. I'm trying. Julian stood, his slim frame trembling. "I've been out since I was 16, Marcus. I fought for this, for us. I've faced my mom's disappointment, my friend's judgment, and I've never hidden who I am. But you're still in the closet with one foot out the door." Marcus's jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists. "You think it's easy for me? You think I don't want to scream it to the world? My dad would disown me, Jules. My clients, half of them would ditch me. I'm not like you. I can't just be." Julian's heart ached, but his resolve held firm. "I'm not asking you to be me. I'm asking you to love me. Out loud. Without shame. And if you can't, then maybe I need to walk away." The words hung between them, heavy and final. Marcus's eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking through his stoic facade. "Walk away? You're serious?" Julian nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I deserve someone who's all in. And you deserve to be free, Marcus. But I can't wait forever." The rain kept falling, a relentless rhythm to their unraveling. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, and Julian felt the first crack in his heart widen into a chasm. He grabbed his jacket and walked toward the door, each step heavier than the last. As his hand touched the knob, Marcus's voice broke through. "Jules, wait." Julian paused, his back to Marcus, hope and fear warring inside him. But when he turned, Marcus's face was still guarded, his words trapped behind that fortress. "I need time," Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. "Time," Julian echoed, his voice hollow. "I've given you 2 years of it." He opened the door and stepped into the rain, leaving Marcus standing alone in the apartment that suddenly felt too small for both their hearts. The streets of San Francisco were slick with rain, reflecting the neon lights of the Castro district. Julian walked aimlessly, his white sweater soaked through, his mind replaying every moment with Marcus. The first date at a hole-in-the-wall taco joint, where Marcus had laughed so hard at Julian's bad Spanish that salsa had spilled on his shirt. The late nights designing logos while Marcus massaged his shoulders, whispering, "You're gonna be huge one day, Jules." The quiet mornings when they'd lie tangled in bed, Marcus's arm heavy across Julian's chest, their breaths sinking like a silent promise. But promises, Julian realized, meant nothing without action. He loved Marcus fiercely, but love wasn't enough if it was one-sided. He needed more than stolen moments and half-truths. He needed a partner, not a shadow. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out, expecting Marcus. Instead, it was a text from his best friend, Elena, a 26-year-old barista with a knack for knowing when Julian was spiraling. "You okay, mi amor? Come to the cafe. I'm closing up." Julian hesitated, then turned toward the Mission District, where Elena worked at a cozy coffee shop called Bean Haven. The bell above the door jingled as he entered, and Elena, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, looked up from wiping down the counter. Her brown eyes softened at the sight of him. "Jesus, Jules, you look like a drowned puppy," she said, tossing him a towel. "What happened?" Julian collapsed into a chair, the towel useless against his soaked clothes. "I told Marcus I might leave him," he said, his voice breaking. "He didn't even fight for me, Elena. Just asked for time." Elena slid into the chair across from him, her expression fierce. "Then he's an idiot. You're a damn catch, Julian Torres. If he can't see that, he doesn't deserve you." Julian managed a weak smile. "I love him, Elena, but I'm so tired of feeling like I'm begging for scraps." Elena reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "You don't beg. You're stronger than that. And if Marcus can't step up, you'll find someone who will. Or you'll shine on your own, because you always do." Her words were a lifeline, pulling Julian from the edge of despair. But as he sat in the warm glow of the cafe, the question lingered. Could he really let go of Marcus? And if he did, what would it cost them both? The next morning, Julian woke in Elena's guest room, the scent of coffee pulling him from a restless sleep. His phone was silent, no calls, no texts from Marcus. The absence stung, but it also hardened his resolve. He couldn't keep living in limbo. At his own apartment, he found Marcus gone, a note on the counter, "Jim. Back later." No apology, no explanation. Just Marcus, running from the truth again. Julian's chest tightened, but he pushed the pain down and grabbed his laptop. Work had always been his refuge, and today he needed it more than ever. His latest project was a logo for a local queer youth center, a pro bono gig he'd taken on because it mattered. The center, called Haven House, was a safe space for kids like Julian had been, scared, proud, and searching for belonging. As he sketched, his mind wandered to his own coming out at 16, the way his mother had cried not out of anger but fear for the world he'd face. She'd come around, but it had taken time. Marcus's family, though, was another story. His father, a pastor in Atlanta, preached fire and brimstone, and Marcus had spent his life trying to be the son his father wanted, strong, straight, perfect. Julian's phone buzzed again, this time with an email from Haven House. They wanted him to speak at their annual gala, to share his story as a young, out artist. The idea terrified him. Public speaking wasn't his thing, but it also sparked something. Maybe his pain, his truth, could help someone else feel less alone. He spent the day lost in his work, the lines of his designs sharp and purposeful. But when evening came and Marcus still hadn't returned, Julian made a decision. He packed a small bag and left a note of his own. "I'm at Elena's. I need space. Figure out what you want, Marcus." As he stepped into the night, the city lights blurring through his tears, Julian felt a strange mix of fear and freedom. He was done waiting for Marcus to choose him. Now, it was time to choose himself. The days without Marcus stretched into a week, each one a battle between Julian's heart and his resolve. Elena's guest room became his sanctuary, its walls lined with her eclectic art and the faint scent of lavender from a candle she burned obsessively. But even her warmth couldn't fill the void Marcus had left. Julian threw himself into his work, refining the Haven House logo until it was a vibrant burst of color, a phoenix rising from rainbow flames, symbolizing resilience. The gala was 2 weeks away, and the thought of speaking in front of hundreds of people made his stomach churn. But every time he wavered, he thought of the kids at Haven House, their wide-eyed hope and quiet fears. If he could help even one of them, it would be worth it. Meanwhile, Marcus was a ghost. No calls, no texts, just a single email. "I'm sorry, Jules. I'm trying to figure this out." Julian read it a dozen times, searching for something, anything, that felt like love. But the words were hollow, and they only deepened the ache in his chest. One evening, Elena dragged Julian to a drag show at a bar in the Castro called Neon Nights. The place was alive with glitter and laughter, queens strutting across the stage to Beyoncé's latest hit. Julian, usually shy in crowds, felt a spark of joy watching the performers own their truth. Elena, sipping a margarita, nudged him. "See? This is what living looks like. You don't need Marcus to shine, Jules." But as the night wore on, Julian's thoughts drifted back to Marcus. He remembered the first time they'd gone to Neon Nights together. Marcus hesitant but curious, his laughter breaking free when a queen pulled him on stage for a lip-sync battle. That night, Marcus had seemed so close to letting go, to embracing who he was. Where had that man gone? The answer came the next morning, in the form of a knock on Elena's door. Julian opened it to find Marcus standing there, his gym bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes red-rimmed and raw. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice rough. Julian's heart lurched, but he stepped aside, letting Marcus in. Elena, sensing the tension, grabbed her keys and muttered something about coffee runs. The door clicked shut, leaving them alone. "I messed up, Jules," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I've been a coward. I thought I was protecting us, but I was just scared." Julian crossed his arms, his hazel eyes searching Marcus's face. "Scared of what? Of me? Of us? Of everything," Marcus admitted, sinking onto the couch. "My dad, my career, the way people look at me. I thought if I kept us quiet, I could keep you without losing everything else. But I'm losing you anyway, and it's killing me." Julian's throat tightened, but he held his ground. "You don't get to say that now, Marcus. Not after I begged you to see me, to love me. You can't just show up and expect me to fall back into your arms." Marcus's head dropped into his hands, his shoulders shaking. I know I don't deserve you. But I love you, Jules. I've loved you since the day you dropped that damn dumbbell. I was just too weak to say it." The words hit Julian like a tidal wave, everything he'd wanted to hear for 2 years. But they came too late, and they hurt as much as they healed. "Why now?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why not a week ago? Or a year ago?" "Because I went to Haven House," Marcus said, lifting his head. His eyes were wet, his voice raw. "I saw the work you're doing, the kids you're helping. I saw your logo on their flyers, and I realized you're out there changing lives, and I'm hiding. I don't want to hide anymore." Julian's breath caught. He'd never told Marcus about Haven House, never shared how much it meant to him. "You went there?" Marcus nodded. "I wanted to understand you, to see what you're fighting for. And I saw myself in those kids, Jules. Scared, ashamed, but wanting to be free. I want to be free with you." For a moment, Julian couldn't speak. The man he loved was finally here, raw and open, but the pain of the past 2 years lingered like a bruise. "I want to believe you," he said softly. "But words aren't enough. You have to show me, Marcus. You have to show the world." Marcus stood, closing the distance between them. "I will," he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "I'm done running. Let me prove it. Julian's heart pounded, torn between hope and fear. He wanted to reach out, to pull Marcus close, but he held back. How, he asked. How do you prove something like that? Come to the gala with me, Marcus said. Let me stand by your side, out and proud. Let me be your partner, not your secret. The invitation hung between them, a fragile bridge over the chasm of their past. Julian wanted to say yes, to believe in second chances, but he'd been burned before. I need time, he said, echoing Marcus's words from that rainy night. I need to know this is real. Marcus nodded, his expression a mix of determination and pain. I'll wait, Jules. As long as it takes. As Marcus left, Julian stood frozen, his mind racing. The gala was a chance to see if Marcus could keep his promise, but it was also a risk. Could he trust the man who'd broken his heart to mend it? That night, Julian sat at Elena's kitchen table, sketching ideas for his gala speech. Each word felt like a step toward something bigger, not just for him, but for Marcus, for the kids at Haven House, for every heart still hiding. He didn't know if Marcus would show up, or if they could heal what had been broken. But for the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope, like a phoenix stirring in the ashes. The days leading up to the Haven House Gala were a blur of nerves and anticipation. Julian poured his energy into his speech, rewriting it until the words felt like an extension of his soul. He wanted to tell a story of resilience, of finding strength in vulnerability, but every draft circled back to Marcus, the man who'd shaped so much of his heart, for better or worse. Elena became his unofficial coach, reading his drafts and offering feedback with her trademark bluntness. This is good, Jules, she said one night, tapping his laptop screen. But it's too safe. Dig deeper. Tell them what it's like to love someone who's afraid to love you back. Julian winced, but he knew she was right. The truth was messy, painful, but it was also what made him human. So he rewrote again, weaving in the ache of loving Marcus, the courage it took to demand more, and the hope that kept him fighting. By the time the gala arrived, his speech was a raw, beating hard on the page. The event was held at a community center in the Mission, its walls adorned with Julian's Phoenix logo and photos of Haven House kids laughing, creating, thriving. Julian, dressed in a tailored navy suit, stood backstage, his palms sweaty as he watched the crowd fill the room. Donors, volunteers, and queer youth mingled, their voices a vibrant hum. He scanned the faces, searching for Marcus, but there was no sign of him. As the gala began, Julian's nerves spiked. He was scheduled to speak after the keynote, a trans activist named Riley, whose fiery words about self-acceptance left the room electric. When Riley introduced Julian, the applause felt like a wave crashing over him. He stepped to the podium, his heart pounding, and looked out at the sea of faces. I'm not a speaker, he began, his voice shaky but clear. I'm an artist. I tell stories with lines and colors, not words. But tonight, I want to tell you about a story I'm still writing. The story of loving someone who's learning to love himself. The room went quiet, every eye on Julian. He spoke of his journey, of coming out to a mother who feared for him, of finding community in places like Haven House. And then, his voice trembling, he spoke of Marcus. I loved a man who couldn't say it back. Not because he didn't feel it, but because the world told him he shouldn't. I fought for him, but more importantly, I fought for myself. Because love, real love, means demanding to be seen. The crowd was silent, then erupted in applause. Julian's eyes stung with tears, but he felt lighter, as if he'd shed a weight he'd carried too long. As he stepped off the stage, Elena rushed to him, wrapping him in a hug. You were incredible, she whispered. I'm so proud of you. But Julian's heart sank as he scanned the room again. Marcus wasn't there. The promise, the hope, it had all been words. He forced a smile for Elena, but inside, he was crumbling. Then, As the crowd dispersed for the reception, a figure appeared at the edge of the room. Marcus, in a black suit that hugged his broad shoulders, his eyes locked on Julian. He looked nervous, out of place, but he was there. Julian's breath caught as Marcus approached, his steps deliberate. "You came," Julian said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wouldn't miss it," Marcus replied, his deep voice soft. "Your speech, Jules, it broke me. I've been such a fool." Julian's heart raced, but he held back. "You being here doesn't fix everything, Marcus. It's a start, but—" "I know," Marcus cut in, his eyes pleading. "I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I'm asking for a chance to earn it. I told my dad about us today. He didn't take it well, but I don't care anymore. I'm done hiding." Julian's eyes widened. "You told him?" Marcus nodded, a small smile breaking through. "And I'm telling everyone. Starting with you. I love you, Julian Torres. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." The words were a balm to Julian's wounded heart, but they also stirred a storm of doubt. Could he trust this? Could Marcus really change? Before he could respond, a group of Haven House kids approached, their faces bright with admiration. "Your speech was amazing, Julian," one said, a non-binary teen named Alex. "Can you teach us how to draw like you?" Julian laughed, the tension easing. "Sure thing, Alex. Let's set up a workshop." As the kids chattered, Marcus stood by his side, not as a shadow, but as a partner. For the first time, Julian felt the weight of Marcus's presence not as a burden, but as a possibility. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of conversations and laughter. Marcus stayed close, engaging with the kids, his usual guarded demeanor replaced by a quiet openness. Julian watched him, torn between hope and caution. When the night ended, Marcus walked Julian to Elena's car, their hands brushing but not quite touching. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Julian hesitated, then nodded. "One step at a time, Marcus. But yeah, tomorrow." As Elena drove them away, Julian looked back at Marcus, standing alone under the streetlights. The road to healing would be long, but for the first time, Julian believed they might walk it together. The weeks after the gala were a delicate dance. Julian and Marcus met often, but not at their old apartment. Instead, they chose neutral ground, coffee shops, parks, the cliffside overlooking the Pacific where Julian had once imagined their future. Each meeting was a test, a chance for Marcus to prove he meant his words, and for Julian to decide if he could trust again. Marcus was trying. He'd started therapy, a step Julian hadn't expected. "I need to figure out why I've been so scared," Marcus admitted one afternoon, sitting across from Julian at Bean Haven. "Not just of my dad, but of myself. I want to be the man you deserve." Julian sipped his latte, studying Marcus's face. The vulnerability was new, raw, and it stirred something in him. But love, he'd learned, wasn't enough without trust. "I want that too," he said. "But it's not just about you changing. It's about us rebuilding. Together." Marcus nodded, his hand reaching for Julian's across the table. This time, Julian didn't pull away. Their fingers laced together, a small act of courage in a crowded cafe. Over the next month, Marcus began to show up in ways Julian hadn't dared hope for. He joined Julian at Haven House, volunteering to coach basketball for the kids. His presence drew shy smiles from teens who saw themselves in his strength, his struggle. One day, Alex, the non-binary teen from the gala, pulled Julian aside. "Marcus is cool," they said. "He gets it. You're lucky." Julian smiled, but the word lucky felt heavy. Luck hadn't brought them here. Pain and perseverance had. Still, seeing Marcus laugh with the kids, his guard down, made Julian's heart ache with possibility. The turning point came on a rainy evening, much like the night Julian had walked away. They were at the cliffside, the same one from Julian's vision, the ocean roaring below. Marcus had planned a picnic, a gesture so unlike his usual stoic self that Julian had laughed when he saw the basket. Now, as they sat on a blanket, the rain held off just long enough for the sunset to paint the sky in gold and pink. "Jules," Marcus said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I've been thinking about what you said in your speech. About demanding to be seen. I want to do that for you. For us." Julian's breath hitched. "What does that mean?" Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, carved wooden box. Inside was a simple silver ring, etched with a tiny phoenix. "It's not a proposal," Marcus said quickly, his cheeks flushing. "Not yet. But it's a promise. I'm all in, Jules. No more hiding. No more fear. I want to build a life with you, out in the open." Tears blurred Julian's vision as he took the ring, his fingers trembling. "Marcus, You don't have to say yes," Marcus interrupted, his voice urgent. "Just know I mean it. I'll spend every day proving it." Julian slipped the ring onto his finger, the weight of it grounding him. "I'm not saying yes," he said, his voice soft but firm. "But I'm saying let's try. Really try." Marcus's face broke into a smile, the kind that lit up his whole being. He pulled Julian into his arms, and for the first time in months, Julian let himself melt into the embrace. The ocean roared, the sky burned, and in that moment, they were enough. The road to healing wasn't smooth. There were fights, about Marcus's hesitation to tell his clients, about Julian's fear of being hurt again. But there were also moments of grace. Quiet mornings sketching while Marcus read beside him, evenings at Haven House teaching kids to draw and dribble, nights where they talked until dawn, rebuilding trust one word at a time. A year later, they stood together at the next Haven House gala, hand in hand. Julian's logo was everywhere, a symbol of hope, and Marcus was no longer a shadow but a partner, out and proud. When Julian took the stage to speak, Marcus was in the front row, his eyes shining with love. "We're all writing our stories," Julian told the crowd, his voice steady now. "Mine is about love, messy, painful, beautiful love. It's about finding someone who sees you, who fights for you, and learning to fight for yourself. It's not perfect, but it's ours." The crowd cheered, but Julian's eyes were on Marcus, who stood and clapped, tears streaming down his face. Later, as they danced under the fairy lights, Marcus whispered, "I'm so proud of you, Jules. And I love you. Always." Julian smiled, the ring on his finger catching the light. "I love you too," he said, and for the first time, he believed they could heal, not just for now, but for all the tomorrows they'd fight for together.